Once upon a time, there was a Trojan king named Laomedon who owned magical horses gifted to his grandfather, Tros, by Zeus in compensation for kidnapping Ganymede. Laomedon had a large family, including many children with wives such as Platia, Strymo, Zeuxippe, or Leucippe. However, Laomedon faced punishment by Zeus for conspiring against him. Despite his punishment, Laomedon was served by Apollo and Poseidon, who constructed protective barriers around Troy. However, Laomedon refused to pay their wages, which led to a pestilence and a deadly sea monster attacking the city. In order to end the crisis, Laomedon decided to sacrifice his own daughter, Hesione, to the sea monster. Just when things were seemingly hopeless, Heracles arrived and promised to save Hesione in exchange for Laomedon's magical horses. However, Laomedon broke his promise, causing Heracles to wage war on Troy. As a result, Heracles conquered the city, killing Laomedon and all his sons except for Podarces. Eventually, Hesione was taken as a war prize by Telamon, but she later ransomed her brother Podarces, who changed his name to Priam. Despite the sad ending, the story is filled with interesting details such as magical horses, gods constructing barriers, and a heroic rescue mission. Laomedon loved his horses more than anything else in the world. His horses were not ordinary, they had divine parentage. Zeus himself had given them to Tros as compensation for abducting his son, Ganymede. Laomedon's secretive breeder, Anchises, crafted his own mares from these divine horses, making them even more special. Laomedon's nephew and Ganymede's brother, Elos, was the father of Laomedon. When Zeus abducted Ganymede, Tros was left distraught. But Zeus sent Hermes with 2 horses that could run over water and told Tros that Ganymede was immortal and would be the cupbearer for the gods. Despite feeling saddened by his brother's abduction, Laomedon needed to take care of his horses. He spent most of his time with them, brushing their manes, feeding them, and riding them through the fields. Everyone who saw Laomedon knew that he was someone who was dedicated to his horses, but he was also a kind and loving person. One day, Laomedon's horses escaped from the stables and ran off into the forest. Laomedon could not find them, no matter how hard he looked. A few days passed, and he had given up hope. That was until he was walking through the forest, and he heard a familiar sound, the sound of his horse's name. He ran towards the sound and found his horses grazing in a clearing. But what he saw next was something he could not believe. His horses had found new friends, and these friends were unicorns. Laomedon could not believe his eyes. He knew that unicorns were not real, but there they were, grazing alongside his beloved horses. Laomedon knew that he had to capture one of these unicorns and bring it back home. So he slowly approached the unicorns, trying not to scare them. The unicorns looked up at him with their big, brown eyes, and Laomedon knew that he was in luck. He slowly reached out and touched the unicorn's horn, and to his surprise, the unicorn let him. Laomedon returned home with the unicorn, and from then on, it lived alongside his horses in the stables. The unicorn became just as beloved as his divine horses. And Laomedon, well, he knew that he had something truly special. In Greek mythology, Poseidon, the god of the sea, and Apollo, the god of music and prophecy, were known for their great powers. One day, they decided to team up and challenge Zeus by putting him in bonds. However, their plans went awry, and they were caught and punished by the supreme god. As punishment, Poseidon and Apollo were ordered to serve King Laomedon, and they transformed themselves into men to carry out his orders. They were tasked with building walls around the city, and in return, Laomedon promised them wages. However, when the walls were completed, he refused to pay them, which infuriated the 2 gods. To seek revenge against Laomedon, Poseidon sent a sea monster to invade the city and carry away its inhabitants. Meanwhile, Apollo sent a pestilence, causing chaos and fear in Troy. King Laomedon consulted the oracles, who revealed that his daughter Hesione could be sacrificed to the sea monster to stop the calamities befalling Troy. Hesione was fastened to rocks and left to await her fate when Heracles arrived in Troy after fighting the Amazons. Heracles promised to save Hesione if Laomedon would give him the mares that Zeus had given in compensation for the ascendance of Ganymede into Olympus to serve the gods. Laomedon agreed to the terms, and Heracles killed the monster and freed Hesione. However, King Laomedon refused to honor the agreement and held on to the magical horses. Furious, Heracles threatened to declare war against Troy and departed in disgust. Thus, Poseidon, Apollo, and Heracles taught Laomedon a valuable lesson for going back on his word. After his service, Heracles gathered a brave army and sailed for Ilium with 18 ships of 50 oars. The journey was arduous and perilous, with many of his men falling ill or being lost at sea. However, Heracles was determined to reach his destination and claim victory against the Trojans. Once they reached the shore, he left Oikos in charge of the ships and with the rest of the troops, attacked the city. The Trojans were caught off guard by Heracles' sudden assault, and a fierce battle ensued. Laomedon, the Trojan king, marched against the ships, and in battle, killed Oikos. Heracles was furious at the loss of his comrade and vowed revenge. He rallied his troops and unleashed his full might upon the city. But after being repelled by Heracles' forces, Laomedon was besieged. Telamon was the first to breach the wall and enter the city, followed by Heracles. The two warriors fought valiantly, striking down any enemy that crossed their path. After Heracles captured the city, he killed Laomedon and his sons, excluding Podarces. Heracles gave Hesione, Laomedon's daughter, to Telamon as a war prize and allowed her to take with her whoever she wanted from the captives. Hesione chose Podarces, her youngest brother. However, Heracles demanded that her brother must first become a slave and be ransomed by her. To purchase his freedom, Hesione took the golden veil from her head and gave it as a ransom. From then on, Podarces was known as Priam, and he would go on to become the king of Troy, ruling over the city during the Trojan War. The story of Heracles' conquest of Ilium would be recounted for generations as a testament to his incredible strength and determination.
Do you want to explore more Greek mythology stories? Who do you want to see featured next? Subscribe and leave a comment below to let me know. I'll see you in the next video.